Welcome to the High Achievers Quest podcast, where we host extraordinary individuals who are disrupting and transforming the way we do business and the way we lead ourselves and others. Now, our today's guest is someone who helps people tackle what is known to be the number one fear that people have all around the world. That is the fear of public speaking. Now, Peter is a global speaker coach. He's a virtual speaking specialist, a TEDx coach, a media skills trainer, and a global events MC. He's also a speaker who has worked in 32 countries and lived in 7. He helps executives, entrepreneurs, and teams tell clearer stories and helps them develop their speaking styles, be it in front of a real crowd or in a virtual setting. Now, if you too fall in that 73% of people who are just terrified of public speaking, then you really don't want to miss this episode. Without further ado, please help me give a very warm welcome to Peter Hopwood. Peter, welcome.
Thank you so much, Andreja. Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here, and we're connected. I'm in Croatia right now, in the south of the country. You're not too far away, bordering in Slovenia. But there's one thing that joins us together right now, and that's the heat. We're baking hot. We're boiling hot. It's 37, 38 here in Split. What's the temperature where you are right now in Ljubljana?
Similar. We're just a few hours away from one.
Yeah. So it's just I'm glad we made this happen.
Yeah, me as well. So thank you so much for joining us. And basically what I would love for our audience to hear and to get to know about you is, behind every successful individual and every successful story, right? There usually lies a backstage story behind how you got started, right? So let's break the ice and help our audience get to know that beginning story of how Peter became as confident as he is today around public speaking. And was that always the case? Were you always this confident and this enthusiastic about this topic?
Well, the answer to that question that you've just asked me is no. So I'm like many people, a young man growing up with all the challenges and all the issues and the things that run around in our heads as we're going through teenage years, early years of our career, the same kind of things. So no, I'm just because perhaps somebody seems confident in what they're doing, or that moment in time where you see them or hear them or experience them, they might feel confident to you. You might perceive them as somebody who's really confident, but that doesn't necessarily mean they've always been like that, or they're actually confident people in other areas of their life, and I certainly I'm not that. So I'm confident in what I do, in my job, in how I feel about my work. Many other areas I'm quite confident as well, but there are many things that I know I'm not great at, and I know that I have weaknesses in. So first things first, confident. Somebody who seems confident, perhaps really confident in something, is a kind of mirage, because it's not something that is usually, confidence throughout every element of their lives. If we go back quickly to how it all started for me, I went to art college and my art school education, and then after that finished, I started to travel. I went to live in Paris, worked for Disney. I went to the south of France, studied there and worked at the same time. Did some more traveling, joined a large travel company, a large British travel company. That gave me an opportunity to live and work in many different countries, most of them around Europe. And in that job, a lot of that was actually presenting. So presenting the great things you could do when you're on holiday, those great experiences, those moments that you've been looking forward to all year round, although most people now take 2 or 3 holidays a year. But then it was only usually one, looking forward to the sun, looking forward to the sea, and all the other things you could do. So my job was really making sure people were comfortable, people were happy, and presenting the ideas and the different things they can do while they were on holiday. So a lot of that came in the form of presentations. So I was presenting to 200, 300 people 4 times a week, the same presentation week in, week out. And through that process, I realized there were small things I could do that were different, that would change something in the perception of the people looking at me, right? So the audience in front of me, if I changed the way perhaps how I said something, the intonation in my voice about a certain phrase, how I felt about that certain idea or certain excursion or certain concept, that came through, and people could feel that. They could see it, they could feel it in my body. So for me, I was fascinated by the way I could kind of change things and try to alter the signals that I'm sharing to get a different outcome in the minds of the people looking at me, right? So that kind of started this kind of bug that I felt, a good bug, to give me this kind of feeling of, presenting could be fun. Presenting is a challenge. Getting over this idea of how people are judging you. They're constantly judging you, constantly making decisions about you. And when you're on a stage or when the spotlight's on you, there are even more eyes on you, right? So for me, it was a challenge to get past that. But once I started to do it once, twice, and as I say, 4 times a week, 200, 300 people over 6-7 years, you get used to it, and you get used to doing things well and remembering in your mind those moments that you do well, which can be almost like an affirmation, almost like evidence to yourself that you're doing okay. So that's how that kind of started, continued different countries, came to Croatia about 21 years ago, did a few more years in the same job. And then I met a young lady from Croatia, and then stayed here. About 15 years ago, opened up my own company, communications training, and then that kind of twisted more towards presentations, helping people to really find their story, find their, the thing that can help people connect with you. Yeah. So helping people find their stories, develop their stories, and then obviously deliver them in the right way. So whether that is a keynote speech at a conference for a CEO in front of other companies, or even his company, or maybe a TEDx speaker on a TEDx stage who's doing 15 minutes. This is their moment of fame, really making that as sharp and as really kind of engaging as possible, or just helping leaders speak in front of their teams with more comfort, with more confidence, and with more belief, right? So these things here, again, they help me not just in the work that I do, but those other areas I mentioned earlier on, and I'm sure you have the same, Andreja, people that are listening to this as well. If you can learn to improve your voice, improve how you communicate, it can help you with your confidence in other areas of life as well. So I enjoy it, and this is where I am right now. So I've kind of tried to squeeze 28 years all together into 5 minutes. Hopefully I did that.
Well done. I think you've done an amazing job. Basically, there's a few points that I want to bring you back, because obviously your journey is fascinating. And I think, just thinking about the fact that most people on this planet are more afraid of public speaking than they are of dying. Literally, the statistics is showing that that's the case. I would love for us to go back and just touch on that part where, TEDx coaching, helping people find their story, delivering their story. I think there's a lot of people in our audience that would love to hear you talk about the specifics around what does it take for one to give a TEDx talk. How does it look like when you're preparing and coaching someone who's about to deliver one? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I'll try and do that right now. So, so first of all, a lot of people that they see a TEDx talk as kind of like the penultimate, ultimate achievement, right? Which is which is a good achievement. It's good to do that. It's good to do a TEDx talk, right? Because it's always there. It's kind of like almost like part of your CV. But in fact, all it is, I have to say, all it is like 15, 16, 17, 18 minutes, maybe less, of a speech that gets highlighted and you can use it as your signature speech. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's like the ultimate achievement in terms of speaking, right? So that's the first thing. Not to see TEDx speakers and to see the whole TEDx idea as something better than any other speech you'll ever do, or if someone has done a TEDx speech, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are amazing speakers or have got amazing stories to tell. Right. Sorry to let you down on that.
Right.
So that's the first thing, because at the end of the day, TEDx is all about ideas worth spreading, right? So stories, so a connection. The idea is really to create a short, sharp concept that's going to help people usually change something within their mindset, change the way they do things, maybe opening up a possibility for them, and also taking them on that journey through that possibility, right? So it's a story. It's a kind of short, sharp story on a stage, and this gets put onto the TEDx website and can go viral. But again, a lot of people use this as part of their CV to give them credibility. That's not necessarily the case unless you do a really good TEDx talk. And really good for me, TEDx talks that are exceptional, that really stand out, are the ones that really connect. The ones that really make us feel something different, the ones that make us really think about something maybe in perhaps a slightly different way, or maybe introduce an idea that we've never ever thought about before, realize that it's actually important and there's substance to this, and maybe make us do something or feel something differently after it. So when I sit down with a client, for example, a potential client, or someone that we've already decided that we're going to work together, first things first, I always need to know how they see themselves. Right. So how do you, the question would be something like, how do you see yourself as a speaker? So when you stand on a stage, when you speak in front of a group of people, what do you think people see? How do they feel about you? What's the perception? How would you describe? Give me a few adjectives that describe what you think people feel when they hear you, when they see you.
Right.
So those answers kind of give me a feel as to where they are on the scale of things like the judgment and the perception of other people, how that's going to affect them, how they, in their minds, see the audience and how they see them. Once we've done that, once we've kind of established that, then we go on to this very simple question of, okay, what's the key message you want to share? What's the message? What do you want to talk about? What is it you want people to feel, you want people to walk away with? And sometimes that message is it depends on the client and where we are in the process. Sometimes people come to me, they've just got one line, one kind of message, but they're not sure how to get there. So my job is to really help them get there and take them on that process and show them perhaps options, the best option to get there. Right. Others have a kind of concrete idea and a strong messages. Maybe sometimes along that path we need to kind of chip away and go for a slightly different angle, or it might just mean they've got 3 ideas and we just take away 2 and we're just left with one really strong, meaningful, emotional, connecting idea. Right. So it's kind of like, I would say those are the 2 areas that I focus on, that we focus on, that we talk about. A lot of it is talking. They talk, I listen.
Yeah.
I ask questions like probably you do as well. And a lot of coaches also. So it's kind of getting to know them, getting to know where they are in this, asking them as well, why do you want to do a TED talk? That's a really good question to ask, because the answer often gives me a lot of indication in terms of, again, how they see themselves. If they say to themselves, look, I want to do a TED talk because I want to go viral and I want everybody to see that I'm great and I'm a great speaker. If it's just that, and then I say, okay, what kind of message do you want to share? And they're thinking, well, I don't know. I'm not sure. I haven't really thought about that. They're coming from it from a slightly, maybe the wrong angle. Yeah. Right. So starting off with the message that you want to share. And so that's why you see a lot of TED talkers, a lot of TED talks by people that have maybe already written a book. That doesn't mean you have to write a book to be a TED talk, TEDx speaker, but a lot of people already have these messages, already have these kind of notions in their head of helping people to change something, helping people to feel something different, and again showing them possibilities and showing them how the pathway to that possibility as well. So it's really those two areas that I would that we would start with, and those are the areas I think if anyone's listening to this now and they're thinking, okay, perhaps I'd like to do a TED talk. It's always been something I wanted to do. So my bucket list, for example, maybe those two areas. Think about those two, and once you've got kind of some pretty good answers to those two, then maybe your next stage is to reach out to somebody that can help them. Reach out to me or another TEDx coach that can perhaps point you into the right direction.
Beautiful. And so I guess one other question relating to presenting in person, because obviously today there's a lot of virtual presenting, which we will touch on in a bit. But if we stay on this topic of standing in front of a crowd, what are usually the 3 biggest fears that you hear your clients speak of and that you help them overcome? And if do you have any tips to offer when it comes to overcoming those? So let's just look at 3.
Yeah, I think so. If we look at this fear of public speaking, you mentioned it earlier on. For me, it's the fear is kind of like the umbrella word, but if you kind of, it's like a box that says fear on it. If you open up the box, inside that fear box, you've got other kind of things that are under there. You've got rejection, right? So a lot of people are feeling that, they don't want to be, nobody wants to feel rejection in any way. Rejection from our partners, rejection from the people that we're close to, rejection from in business, so it's being rejected for your ideas and rejected for the things that you value, right? That could be one thing. Another thing is the judgment level. So being judged, just being judged for many people is something that they find difficult to handle, right? So this kind of thicker skin that we kind of have to form, and most of us do that and in some way, but again, there's always we've all got holes. There are little holes all over the place. Even when we get older, even when we're a lot older than me and you, people will still have those holes now and again. Yeah. So that there are other things involved when we talk about that fear: rejection, fear of the judgment, fear of looking like an idiot, fear of somebody not appreciating your ideas, the fear of not agreeing with you. That's the big thing, I think. Yeah. So, but the thing is, no one has to agree with you. Like, a big thing that certainly helped me earlier on in my career was, accepting that everybody has the right not to listen to you. Everybody has the right not to work with you. So if a client asks me, if I have a call with a potential client, we discuss, it feels like it's going well, and then I share a quote, comes back to me and says, no, this is not going to work, and then let's say that's it, he or she has the right to do that. Exactly. Everybody has the right to not like you, not appreciate you. This podcast now, everybody has the right, if they want to, they hear me and maybe they've had enough of my voice. They probably haven't had enough of you. They'd like to see more of you, Andrea, but me, they've probably had enough of it already. They have a choice. They might click. Yeah, they got a choice, so they can click if they want to, and that's okay. Yeah. So letting people do that, and that judgment is all good, right? So this fear comes in all different shapes and sizes. So you know, a lot of it at the beginning is really getting your mind into the right place, and that takes time. It doesn't, you can't do this overnight. But with more experience that you have, more moments that you can tell yourself, hey, I'm okay, hey, I'm doing all right, or hey, that wasn't so great, I know where I could improve, I know that there was something wrong with that, maybe I need someone to show me where it went wrong, or to give me some indications of what I can do next better. But as long as you're on this kind of journey of improvement, and in your mind accept that, again, people have the right not to like you, people's judgment of you, in fact, that we care far more about the judgment of us than anybody else. So really nobody really cares as much as you do, right? So switching it more to what the audience need and the audience want is a really good idea. So really thinking about that value. What are you going to share? What is it that you're going to give, that you're going to share, that people are going to take away and feel like, actually, this is something that's valuable to me. This is something that I want, that I can learn from. This is something that has made me smile even, or entertain me. Yeah. So giving them that, again, I said it earlier on before, but it's so true, that possibility, showing them, sort of giving them, painting them a picture of the landscape of how things are right now, and then showing them the possibility of what it could be, of what things could be like, better, fruitier, more, you know, warmer, or whatever it is. And then kind of showing them the process, or that pathway of getting there. If you focus on those things, your brain it cannot think of the other things, like, what will people think of me? What, you know, we're like, you know, do I look okay? You know, what will people think of me, of my body, of my hairstyle, of how I sound, my voice, all these things. So focusing on the value and what the audience really need and really want, and can change something in how they feel, that will certainly help you connect more with the audience. It's all about connecting. Good speakers are good connectors.
Right. And
Because yeah, sorry,
go ahead.
no, go for it, go.
And I guess the vulnerability part, like you said, right? Being willing to be okay with who you are and how you are. A lot of the times people say, well, I'm terrified because I feel like I would be, you know, standing naked in front of all these strangers. I don't know what they think of me, right? I hear that often myself. And it's, like you said, it's that mindset work. And I guess practice as well. The more you practice
every time so the more we do something, remember this, so the more we do something, and then we do it often and often and often, our brain tells us that we're actually good at it. We become more confident at it. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're good at it, you know, because you could keep doing the same things in a bad way.
Yeah,
right. Exactly. Which happens a lot in business anyway. Happens a lot. We're all doing it all the time, right? But if you're improving and you're doing it well, and you know you've done it well, or you've had some kind of affirmation or evidence that tells you, yeah, I'm doing it well, just that can just be enough to help you on your next step. And then the next step, which is what happened certainly with me in my coaching career. I'm also an MC and a presenter and a host of different events, global events around the world. I actually started here in Croatia, a couple of small events, and then that kind of gave me the confidence to do more. So I looked at some of the videos and some of the photographs of the event, and I could see myself on stage hosting this event. People seemed to be enjoying it. Maybe they didn't, I don't know, but in my head they were enjoying it, and I was doing well, and it seemed to be going well. So just by looking at that, just by sort of seeing that, it's like, okay, why can't I do another a slightly bigger one somewhere else? And then I did. So I started to do them in Germany, quite a few in the UK, and then it just spread. And then I said to myself, one day I'd love to do Dubai and the UAE. And then from then on, it just spread to different parts of the world, China, Asia, America. So, but that all came from the belief and seeing myself and telling myself, I'm okay, I'm good. I'm quite good at this. I'm not great. There are many people better than me. There are many that are not as good as me. But what I'm sharing is good. It's valuable.
And I
It's
guess it's also having
something
that,
that people want, you know?
yeah, what people want. And what I'm hearing from you as well, you had the courage to suck,
Yeah.
right? You were okay with potentially some people not.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure whether it's you have courage to suck. You usually just suck, and that's it. You got,
Oh, we've
you
also done
don't. We
everything
don't
at the
choose.
beginning,
We
right?
often don't choose not to suck. We just bang. We're like we suck, right? But then, in your mind, accepting that you suck, accepting that it wasn't going well or it didn't go well, and really being honest with yourself,
Yeah.
and then changing something. So it can be something really small, really, really small, just by a movement or just by, often it's actually how you feel about yourself and the energy that you're going to share. So, and often if we just think of that, if we're not there yet, if we're not kind of in that, let's say we've got something to do, we've got a workshop to share, or a presentation to give, or a webinar, or even a Zoom call, right? And there are moments naturally where we just feel like, what, I don't want to do this. I've got other things on my mind, or I'm just not feeling good today, or you've heard a bit of bad news, or you're just grumpy, or just like the day is not your day, right? If you were to continue with that mindset, that would come through. People would see that, people would feel that, people would know there's something not quite right. So the trick is, again, sort of stopping and thinking to yourself, okay, well, I have to push myself here. I have to give good energy. I have to feel good about this. I have to make other people feel good. So if I feel good, you're going to automatically feel better than if I wasn't feeling good. And how do I do that? So very simple, small little things you can do just by thinking about good stuff, just by thinking in your mind how this is going to go, thinking about the outcome and what you want to achieve. So just by thinking about that our thoughts are so powerful, aren't they, Andreja? They're so powerful because whatever we focus on usually gets bigger, right? So if we think about a worry that we've had in the past, like any worry, I don't really want people to sort of think too much about it, but whatever worry we've thought of, if we keep thinking about it, which a lot of people do, and I do as well on certain things, it gets bigger and bigger. And we kind of tell ourselves, we get into this kind of whirlwind of false phrases and false beliefs. And we're trying to figure out how other people are feeling about different things connected to the problem. We have no idea. We have no idea how other people are feeling, right? So you put that aside if it's negative. If it's positive, though, something that we want, something that we're driven to try to achieve, something that we enjoy, something that that we're always thinking about. And it's almost like the world, this kind of law of attraction, or somehow brings that to us because
And it
we're
changes your
searching for it.
state,
Yeah.
right? It's a change of state as well, like you said,
Yeah.
focusing on the good, focusing on breathing, focusing on being present with oneself. That's an
Yeah.
excellent point. So how do you do this, Peter, when it comes to virtual setting? Now, the pandemic obviously has done its job, right? A lot of people have started doing a lot more Zoom, a lot more virtual presentations. There's a lot of conferences on Zoom these days, right? And there's going to be a hybrid that will stay. So people who avoided that in the past will have to, or have had to, get very good at virtual presenting. Now, you are also a virtual trainer, right? When it comes to presentation. So you help teams present and pitch virtually. And, you're involved in a lot of startups, a lot of accelerators, a lot of, that business scene where businesses, entrepreneurs, people are looking for their elevator pitch. They're looking for that next investment. They're looking for that next groundbreaking opportunity. And I know that you're someone who helps them deliver. So can you share with our audience some very practical tips around, maybe, what technology would you use?
Yeah,
What,
sure,
what is
sure.
it would help them present
Yeah,
better?
yeah. So the first thing is, in person, we we've got a lot of information that's coming at us when we see someone, when we hear someone, when we feel someone's ideas, their state, their movements, and we get a lot of information because we can see them. And just by seeing all of them gives you kind of this feeling that you think you can make a better judgment of someone, right? But
Right.
here in this screen here, we've only got kind of four sides and this 2D screen in front of us, and things are very different. So there's a slightly different skill set, slightly different sort of approach you have to take when it comes to things that happen here, right? And one of those things is, again, that data, that information that's coming through, we have to show, we have to kind of amplify, amplify a lot of our signals to make sure the other person on the other side can see that and quickly absorb those signals and make the judgment that we want to get closer to, right, in terms of perception.
Yeah.
So as you can see, for example, right now I'm standing up, right? So I've made a conscious decision to stand up. And for me, when I'm standing up like this, in this frame that I have right here, for those of you that can see, I'm really comfortable with this frame. So I know where I can take my hands to with my gestures. I can move forward slightly if I wanted to, like this, and sort of give you this impression that I'm kind of maybe listening to you even more intensely, or even more focused on you, Andreja, right now. Or I could slightly go back slightly, or I could sort of switch here to the side. Even my hand gestures, I can bring my hands slightly forward, which again gives this kind of slightly different element, slightly different perception, visual perception when you see me, right? Again, on this screen, we need to keep things moving.
Right.
Movement is a really important thing online. So anytime we're kind of checking out a screen, whether we're watching a movie on Netflix, whether we're watching, we're on an app, for example, or we're playing a game, even at the cinema, right? Screens, anything on a screen, humans and screens, we kind of expect things to be stimulating. We expect things to stimulate our brain, to move through the sounds, through the movement, through the colors, through the animation. All these things are designed. This movement is designed to get our brain stimulated. So as you see now, what I've been doing since we've begun together today, I've kind of tried to give you more signals than I would normally if I was maybe just sitting opposite you, right? So through my hands, so I let you see my hands and I let you see what they're doing. Constantly you can see what they're doing. You don't have to necessarily see all of my hands, but you can see that I'm using gestures to help intonate certain words. Then hopefully it's not frantic movement. Hopefully it's not a distraction, but it just gives this kind of, you remember things more and phrases more when there's gestures connected with those phrases.
Right.
I also sound better when I use my gestures. It's a strange thing, but it's really true. When we use gestures, it sends messages up to our brain, then to our vocal cords, and we sound better. Try it. You should try it. It really does work. Again, the frame that you're in, what people see and what they hear, has to be something that makes people feel comfortable with.
Okay.
So the tone I'm using just it's not an expensive microphone, but it's an external microphone, and it does the job really well. It makes my voice sound slightly, hopefully, more appealing.
Okay.
Hopefully, I don't know. But so slightly lower perhaps as well. And the quality is pretty good. Also with the camera I'm using, it's an external camera that I bought. It's not really expensive, but it's a camera again that does the job really well. So having just good quality camera, a good quality microphone, these things set you up, and good quality lighting as well. I've got kind of small little ring lights to the left and to the right of me as well, and a little lamp above. All these three things set you up for kind of this, even before you've spoken, to get people to kind of feel, okay, I'm going to feel comfortable with this. Because if you've got, you know it as well, if you've got bad lighting, or somebody's got bad lighting when you're looking at them and you can't see their eyes, often the eyes, if you can't see their eyes and you can't see their facial expressions, it becomes a real distraction. It becomes a real kind of like, it's a bother, isn't it? Really, it doesn't make you feel good at all. Same with the sound. If there's a distraction with the sound, it doesn't sound right, or there's a crackling noise, or there's, it sounds muffled, for example. Something like that can really be a put off for people listening.
And what about, Peter, and that's excellent, around the technical equipment that people need to be aware of when presenting virtually. What about, for example, let's touch on startups or, important presentations where you have to share a screen, right? Now, I know for myself, when I'm training, right, we do a lot of that over Zoom as well. Like you said, there always has to be that constant movement around where you are at the center, and then you put on your presentation, and then when you're speaking, it's important to switch between the two. But would you say, when it comes to presenting, are there any specific tricks that you teach when presenting virtually for all of those who are looking to either pitch or, really put their point across, and they have to share a screen as well?
So when the screens come up, so when you're, again, remember, on a screen, our attention spans are a lot shorter. So we have to make things shorter, sharper, sweeter, and more concise and more to the point. So we haven't got time for waffle. Time in Zoom land, time in virtual exchanges is really even more valuable than time in the real world. So when people are looking at you, they are judging you, and they're making these decisions about you, and you're trying to literally, by your expressions, and as I said earlier on, those signals that you're amplifying, you're trying to make a connection. The more people see you, the better the connection is going to be. If you don't give them enough, there's not enough data. Screens, slideshows, PowerPoints, just be wary. There's different people who've got different opinions on this in terms of presentations and slideshows in the virtual world. But certainly for me, again, making them as minimalistic as possible, and just getting people, if they have to see a slide and to share information, let's say something complex, quickly, when they see it, they understand it very quickly. And then hopefully their eyes will go back to you, because you're the one speaking, you're the one moving, you're using your voice, and they're listening to that voice, right? So try to keep away from this complex screens where people have to read things, certainly read things on your slideshows, right? So when, for example, when we share our slides, and we often become really small, and then the slideshow becomes really big. Do they really need to see a big slide, a large slide taking up 80% of the screen, and you taking up, 20% of the screen? No, they really need to see you. So if you can kind of make sure that you're at least 50-50. So every time you're sharing a slide, 50-50, and they see you looking at them, that will create a far, far better connection than just a small thumbnail.
Right. And what about winning pitches, right? I know that you are a strategist as well, right? Every coach, every business owner who delivers a service or offers something valuable to people, right, has a bit of a strategy. So if we coached someone who wants to deliver a TEDx talk, you probably have a little bit of a strategy of what does a winning or a very good TEDx talk have to have. And I guess it's the same when we look at the elevator pitch, or when we look at a pitch of a business to investors, right? So is there, 1, 2, 3 winning things that such pitch would have to have in terms of structure?
Yeah, I mean, certainly at the end of the day, the concept, the idea that you have, if it's going to scale, it has to scale. You take this idea, develop this idea, and start to sell it, not just in your town, not just in your city, but across the nation and perhaps the whole of Europe and further. It's a concept which can scale and can actually develop and go further. Really, really important. Again, the big difference between a TED Talk, I'll take these two examples, a TED Talk and a pitch. Right? TED Talk is about the story, is about getting people to think differently and feel differently about an idea, something that really touches them. And it's really about that message. The pitch is far, far more about you as the person who's come up with that idea, who's going to take that idea further, who's going to develop that idea, who's going to support that idea, who's going to listen to investors, who's going to be coached, who's going to accept that some days are going to be really bad, accept that there's going to be highs and lows, somebody that has the determination to keep going. So as I say, with a pitch, it's far, far more, surprisingly, far, far more about the person pitching and the team. We often hear the team is so important. Who are the people behind this?
Yes.
The reasoning, why are they doing it? Why are they doing what they're doing? What's the motivation behind it?
One other question that I have on that note is, when you communicate, when you speak, like you said, you have gotten used to, or you've trained yourself to do certain things in a certain way. Now, let's examine what are some disciplines, some habits that you have personally, that you have either been taking part of or doing religiously over these years of becoming better and better and better in your public speaking journey. Is there anything in particular that you could recommend us to adopt and practice as well?
Yeah, there's a few things I can share with you right now. So one of those is really, before you begin, before you've kind of put things together, is to think about, what the emotion. You're trying to hit some kind of emotion, trying to hit some kind of feeling within the people listening to what you're going to say, and getting them to feel something. And so the context, certainly at the beginning, always starts. So I always start in some way or form, trying to hit some common ground, so people can they relate to me because they agree with me. Okay, here's one example, right? So if I ask you now, Andrea, what is your favorite candy bar? What's your favorite chocolate bar, right? So don't tell me, just think about it, right? So I'm sure you've got this beautiful, if you could go on to a desert island and just have that chocolate bar forever, what one would it be? And I'm sure there's one thinking in your mind now, and people that are listening right now, they're thinking of theirs. Those of you that are listening to this, you're still with us, hopefully. Think of a chocolate bar you would love to have for forever.
Okay, I've got it.
Okay. Yeah. Now you've got yours. I'm going to share with you now my chocolate bar, the chocolate bar that means so much to me. Bang. And I could just tell you it is, in fact, it is a Kit Kat. But anyway, but that's not the point. The point is not that it's a Kit Kat, but the point is, I've asked you, you've thought about it, you've got your perspective on it, kind of thing. And then, so once you've asked yourself the question, we are always in a position where we want to hear what other people think. Right?
We're hooked, right?
I did a TEDx talk with a lady who lives in Dubai now. She's an educator, a professor, and she was talking about how as educators we should be doing more, or connecting more with our students to make them feel comfortable in a safe place so that they can express themselves and move forward, right? So how did we start? This is what we decided, and this is how she started. So she said something like, not word for word, but this is pretty much how it was. She said, okay, so think back to when you were 16. a time, I'm sure, for many of us where we felt great, we felt good. It was a time of first crushes, where we were in love for the first time, our first kiss, perhaps. It was a time where things were new to us. It was a time where perhaps for some of us, it was really uncertain times and maybe a little bit fearful of what was to come. But if there's one thing that was true for all of us, it's that one teacher. We all have one teacher at least that stood out from the rest. Yeah, so that was the kind of, and then she goes on to talk about one specific teacher when she was younger, which was really connected to the story that she brings back at the end. So, but there you go. So all I said was like, all she said as well, think back to when you were 16. So you go back to when you were 16, Andreja, when you were 16, it was a different time. It was a different, your moment, your experience are different from mine and everybody listening as well. But we were all 16. But the thing was, we all had those same feelings, whether they were good, whether they were fearful, whether it was about crushes, whether it was about homework or whatever. And one thing that kind of united us as well, we all have at least one teacher that we remember for good reasons.
Right. So what you just said there, I think offering your audience an experience that was really impactful. Now, let's have a look at some of the literature that you would recommend to our audience. What are some public speaking books, or you speak a lot about the emotional side, the side of your own thoughts and the, I guess, the power of the thoughts when you're standing on stage or when you're presenting, and being able to control yourself in that way. But are there any books that you would recommend to our readers who are interested in improving?
Yeah, there's load of books. So if you were to look at my bookshelf, I probably wouldn't have too many actual books on public speaking, but loads of other areas, all those things come into play. One of those things, I'll show it here right on the thing, on the camera, is so a guy called Joe Navarro. Those of you that are into body language, I'm sure you've heard of him. He was almost like the godfather of body language. But he's written loads of books. I've got quite a few on my bookshelf. This is just one that I've pulled off, and this is the Dictionary of Body Language. And inside, it's so fascinating because there are so many small little ideas of the body that we haven't even thought of that actually help us create a perception of someone. But inside there, lots of great ideas in there. Another one is this one called The Storytelling Book by Anthony Taskell. Again, loads of great ideas on looking at storytelling from a slightly different perspective, looking at it as really a kind of like these threads that kind of take the idea forward and take your listeners and take the people with you emotionally through that journey as well. So there's one there. And the last one I would say is this one here called The Leader's Guide to Presenting by Tom Bird and Jeremy Castle. And I think they actually won an award for this one. So this, in terms of presenting, it is about presenting, but it's more towards, or more geared towards leaders. Yeah. Their perception of how they present, the ideas and the signals they really need to step up on, as opposed to maybe everybody else who's not in a leadership role. So that's this book here really sort of looks more at the idea of mindset, of perception, of self-awareness, perhaps than other books as well. So they're just three that you can find on my bookshelf.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, Peter, let's take you back to when you were 16, right?
Yeah, okay.
Because I think that it's a crucial time in everyone's life, right? And like you said, there's a lot happening there. There's a lot of, a big part of our identity that's forming, right? Figuring out who we are, who we want to be, what we want to become, right? And so what is one advice that you would give to your younger self when you were back at that age, around public speaking, but also around business and life in general?
Yeah, I think for me, if I was to speak now to myself, who's a 16-year-old young man, I'm not really sure of where he's going to, and not quite self-conscious and not really self-aware either, I would say that the feelings that, so if I'm talking to myself now, so Peter, the feelings that you're feeling now at 16, where you think everyone's looking at you, you think everyone's judging you, you feel like everything you do is under the microscope, you feel like you're not good enough compared to everybody else because you don't have the experience, because you don't have the wisdom, because you're not, the thing is, you're not really I'd say, Peter, you're not expected to have the wisdom and you're not expected to have the experience at 16, all right? But being open-minded, being understanding that, you know, people are in their own worlds. People don't really care about you. People are not looking at you, Peter. People don't really care about what you're doing. And, you know, you don't have to be so self-conscious. All right. But what you can do is start thinking about how are you going to, share the signals, being more self-aware of the signals that you can share can help people have a better perception of you, right? So it's not just about, I'm not talking about what you wear, which for many of us when we're young, it's what we wear, isn't it? It's the physical thing. It's the great trainers we're wearing, or it's the makeup that we've got on, or it's the fantastic top we're wearing. Yeah. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how we move, how we stand, when we present ourselves, when we speak to people, how we use our voice, how we sound. You know, do we have our head up? I remember when I was 16, my head was down. Every time I spoke to someone, my head was slightly lower than it was upright. And that clearly was, gave the wrong signal. It gave signals of someone that's not confident, and I wasn't. So I would say to myself, everything's okay. People are not, people don't really judge you as much as you think, but there are ways to kind of be more self-aware, and that will help you, not just when you're 16, but when you're 26, 36, 46, throughout your career.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. That was very heartfelt. And I'm sure that a lot of people had to or needed to hear that as well, because like you said, the fear of not feeling good enough, the fear of being judged is very, very present for many. And it's a really good advice that you've just given to all of us. So thank you. Now, Peter, with the excellent work that you do, I would like our audience to hear about how can they connect with you? Where can they find you if they want to hear more about this topic?
Yeah, the easiest way is just to go onto LinkedIn and find me on there. You can see everything that I've been doing, all the kind of ideas that I'm connected with, lots of tips and lots of ideas as well, lots of interviews and podcasts just like this one. Not as good as this one, but a lot of them are great. But this one's really, really good as well, naturally, with Andreja. You can reach out there, send me a DM, send me a quick message. And if you have listened to this, in that message, say that you listened to this conversation.
Peter, to you, lots of great vibes to Split, to Croatia. And again, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your experience, and yourself with us today.
It's been a delight. Andreja, I hope we can do this again sometime.
Hope so too. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Now, if you like this video, give it a like and share it with your friends. And if you want to be notified every single time that I post new content, make sure that you hit that subscribe button and that bell next to it. Also, don't forget to connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, or visit my website for more information. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.